Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The SPA in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is intentional living. Amazing people like you share ways to live by design and with purpose to ensure that this short ride of life occurs with choice, physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-giving knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and creating a positive impact through intentional living. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Justin Wright. Once an executive at a billion-dollar corporation, he is now an inspiring entrepreneur dedicating to unlocking human potential. His journey, which spans 6 diverse career transitions, testifies to a transformative power of resilience. He's navigated personal challenges from a significant weight loss journey to combating an autoimmune disease. A staunch advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, Justin's actions speak volumes. Today, he enjoys a fulfilling life with his wife and 2 children in Mesa, Arizona. Justin's story stands as a compelling testament that a remarkable personal and professional transformations aren't just possible, they can lead to a rewarding and thriving life. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Diane. Great to be with you.
Well, you and I got to connect on LinkedIn, and we kind of did a little commenting on each other and just seeing what's up. And I just love that you throw out just things kind of out of the ordinary, like things that people can think differently of. And one of the things in particular that kind of came up for me was the thing about the SMART MBA, right? That you went the traditional route, but you gave some books and options to kind of look outside of the box as a way to kind of do some self-learning. I'd love to kind of talk a little bit about that's just how that was for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. So really right now, it's a wonderful time. There's so many resources available for people to expand their own horizons, to grow in their careers and their personal life. You have books that are fantastic. There are a lot of YouTube videos that you can watch, online courses for free. Even some of the major universities like Harvard and Yale are putting their courses on for free. And so it's really a great time. There's no excuses anymore for anybody to be able to gain knowledge and expand their own career.
Yeah, so good. One of the things I really liked seeing there in the extra credit was essentialism. That's actually one of my favorites. That whole thing about, being specific about what you focus on and just get clear on what that is for you and following your values. So how do you kind of look at, you've made this big transition from kind of the corporate into your own thing, and you're kind of like new in that realm. And, I know that, a lot of people think about kind of jumping ship and doing their own thing, but you've actually done that. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, it was a little scary at first. I mean, anytime that you face a major life change, whether it's getting laid off at work or deciding that you're going to, change the way that you have your lifestyle or anything that you're doing differently, it can be a lot of daunting emotions. And that was the same for me too. So I knew about a year ago that I really wanted to do something different. I had been in the corporate world for 22 years, really enjoyed it, had some great experiences, made some wonderful connections with people. But I knew that I wanted to do something more aligned with my passion in life, my purpose, and that is to help people find their own potential and transform themselves. I've done that many times throughout my life. And that meant that I needed to build something on my own. I couldn't do it in the corporate world the way that I really wanted to. And so I set a goal for myself, and I started to move in that direction of finding ways to do things aligned with that purpose. And eventually the doors started to open, things started to fall in place for me. And I was able to work out an exit plan with my company so that my team was well taken care of. And I was able to transition into my own business. And then I decided that LinkedIn was a great place to start sharing some of these ideas because it's a business focused audience. And I saw it as a platform that I could provide some free value to people and help them understand their own potential from a career standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint. And the books that I recommended in that post were books that have had an influence on me and my business career, but also in my personal life, like Essentialism, the idea that less is more, that if you eliminate some of the distractions, some of the things in life that aren't really adding value for you, that you can focus more on the things that you really care about. And that's what it's really all about.
Yeah, so cool. I know that you successfully transitioned through like several of these different pivots. What advice would you give someone who's looking to do a pivot for themselves?
Sure. So pivots are a challenge. They're a learning opportunity. It's something scary for people sometimes. Let's say that you decide that you want to move from, like I did, from one role into a totally different role. I went from marketing into sales, into business management, into IT. And each time I did that, there were a couple of steps that I had to take. First was, you want to really understand why you're doing this. What's the purpose behind it? Because that's going to be the motivating factor to get you through those challenging moments. And then look for experts that you can work with that can help you learn and help you pass some of these learning experiences. So for instance, I've benefited from mentorship in my career many times. I've used coaches. If you don't have those kinds of resources available, look for a book on the subject. Every challenge that you face in life, somebody has already solved and they've written the solution down in a book. So find a great book, do an online course, learn those skills, and then be patient with yourself. So whenever there's a learning challenge that you face, make sure that you're being kind to yourself like you would to somebody else that's just beginning, and give yourself that grace to experiment, to try, to fail, and then just know that you can pick yourself back up and get past it. My daughter's a great example. She's 3 years old, and every day she learns something new. It's really fascinating to watch her. Some days she'll wake up and say things that she's never said before, or she'll be able to do something physically that she couldn't do the day before. And yet every time she tries to do something new, she gets really frustrated with it because she wants to be able to do it. And I think we're the same as adults, that sometimes we don't give ourselves the chance to try and recognize that we're going to fall down. It's okay. You can pick yourself back up. Everything great that you can do today, you were terrible at the first time you tried it. That's just life. And so the human experience is all about learning and growing and giving yourself that grace to try.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one of the things I love about, mentors and coaches is that they see our blind spots. We can be trekking along and just not see some of those things that are obvious to other people. And one of the things that I love about you having a diverse background and doing a lot of different things, a lot of times when people are looking at doing something different, they don't necessarily see the through line, where they may seem like they're like polar opposite experiences and they don't see how they can all contribute. Like a lot of times, like for me, I was a police officer, and then I've done speaking and I've done coaching. But when I look at the through line, it's like I trust myself. I can make quick decisions. I see things other people don't see. When you look at the totality of the things that you've done, what do you see as your through line?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about marketing versus IT, they're totally different parts of the business. And yet what helped me a lot in those different pivots was my ability to connect with people. And so, for example, leading a team of marketing professionals and leading a team of IT professionals is really the same thing. You need to understand how people are motivated, how to inspire them, how to make sure that they're focusing on the right things, how to listen, really listen to them, understand their concerns, help them through their challenges. Those types of leadership roles are consistent across the different areas of the business. And that was the same for me every time I made a pivot. So moving from marketing into sales, into merger integration, and then into business management, each time it was about leading people, about influencing, about helping people see their potential and rise to the occasion. And really, I owe a lot of the credit to my teams. I've worked with some fantastic people and really love the connections that I've made with them. But that was my through line, was just being able to relate to people, connect with people, and see them grow in their own careers.
Yeah, absolutely. One of your strengths and things that you focus on now is unlocking human potential. What does that mean to you, and how does that philosophy fit into your work?
This is something that's taken me a long time to really grasp, and that is that we as human beings are capable of a lot more than we understand. physically. There's a book that I love by David Goggins called Can't Hurt Me, where he talks about losing a lot of weight, about learning how to swim to become a Navy SEAL. He talks about becoming an ultra runner and pushing himself to run, 100 miles at a time. Those kinds of things are really fascinating to me because a lot of it, he uses this concept of 40% rule. He says that when he feels like he's reached his limit, he's learned that he's really only at about 40% of what he can actually accomplish. So he just has to push through that mental block and get to the next level. And I've learned that in my life as well, that at first I feel like something's really hard and I kind of get down on myself about not being able to do what I want to do. And then I start to recognize if I just hold on a little bit longer and face that fear and push past it, I can do a lot more than I'm really capable or than I think I'm capable of. And human potential is the same across everybody that I've ever encountered. We kind of limit ourselves based on what we've been able to do in the past, based on what people told us was possible. And when we start to really believe in ourselves and start to really recognize that you can accomplish a lot more than you think, then those gates open up and you start pushing past it and facing your fears. And with that comes confidence. I really believe that every time you do something hard, every time you face a fear, you gain a little bit more confidence. And over time, that little by little adds up to where you're able to do big things.
Oh, I love Goggins. I mean, talk about like if you ever thought that you had limits on you and you just read any of his work, it's just inspirational to see like, you know what, I'm not quite there yet, even though I think I might be. There's always like the next level. And I love that you talk about the fear, right? There's always different things that that fear comes in, whether it's a mental fear or physical fear, like whatever's going on with that. You mentioned about using the 5-second rule with Mel Robbins. And I just think it's so profound. I love her and I love the simplicity of the things she uses. Can you talk a little bit about the 5-second rule?
Sure. So I read this a few years ago and it really changed my life. I mean, people say that all the time. It changed my life. This really changed my life. So the concept of it is when you have an instinct to do something, you have about 5 seconds before your brain talks you out of it. And so the best way to move is just to count down like a rocket ship counting down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Just take action, do what your impulse is, and that will help you push past that fear. Our brains are hardwired to keep us away from dangerous situations or just things that we think would be dangerous. And in some cases, that's good. I mean, obviously, you don't want to go jumping off a cliff unnecessarily without the right equipment and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we live in an age now where you might be afraid of making a speech or of raising your hand in a meeting to ask a question. And those are not dangerous situations, even though your brain thinks they are. And so if you're in that moment where you need to speak up and your brain, you have that impulse and you just say, okay, I'm going to do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And you ask the question or you say the thing that you need to say. It's a trick that you can use to get yourself past that little fear and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny, part of that whole process is like, if you start getting down to that last part of that countdown and you start having that hesitancy, then procrastination comes in and it's amazing the mind games that happen and you can actually watch it happen. So when we get ourselves to have things that get us into an action right away, then we get to bypass that. So I think that's such a great tool and I think it's a fun way to go. Yeah. So you also talk about, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. In what ways have you done that in your life?
Yeah, that's another great book that I read recently called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that in any area of your life, there's going to be things that you're afraid of. I know I've felt those kinds of fears regularly. I know that even like imposter syndrome, thinking that you're not as good as you need to be in order to try something new. Those kinds of fears, when you feel them, it's an emotion that is telling you something. And what I've learned is that emotions are just information. You can choose how you respond to them. So if you're feeling that fear, that doesn't mean stop. That doesn't mean don't do it. It just means that this is probably something that you really value, but that is something you've never done before. You're uncertain about the outcome. And if you can just push past that fear, just give it a try, 9 times out of 10, you'll gain something positive from that. Even if you aren't able to do it well, even if you fail, you'll still learn from it. And the next time you'll do it a little differently and you'll try a little bit harder and you'll be able to get through it. But feeling that fear is natural. It's part of the human experience. Everybody does it. And the people who can learn how to get past that fear when they feel it are the ones that grow and are able to accomplish more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when Susan Jeffers wrote that book, I think she was way ahead of her time. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually love keeping that on audio because I think just even hearing clips of those kind of things, that's one of the things I love about books is that you can go back and at different parts of your life, it actually lands differently, right? Because you see things in different perspectives just with the journeys that you've had. And one of the things that we talk about here is things that have disempowered you, things that have been challenging. And then when we're able to see that, because a lot of times people watch us and go, oh, they're successful, they got it all together, they've got it figured out. But when you share a little bit about the journey, it allows people to kind of see what that process looked like. So what would be an example of that for you?
Yeah, I'll be happy to share. So 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis. It's a chronic illness. And when it happened, when I was first diagnosed with it, I started to get these symptoms. It rocked my world. I mean, I was in a very busy, stressful time of my life. I was traveling all the time for work, and all of a sudden I have these symptoms that are really debilitating. And I think my body was kind of trying to tell me I needed to slow down. I needed to change my lifestyle. And yet I wasn't willing to accept that. I went through all of the different emotions that you feel. At first, I got depressed and, feeling sorry for myself. Why is this happening to me? I got angry about it. But then eventually I realized that this is a good opportunity for me to learn, for me to change myself and overcome this challenge. And I started digging into learning everything that I could about it, researching it, trying to understand what works to manage these symptoms. How can I heal myself? And what I got out of this experience was a fascinating life change. And that is, I learned that the human body is able to do amazing things. It can heal itself when you give it the right conditions. As long as you're understanding the holistic aspect of your body, how stress influences it, how sleep influences it, what you eat, has a huge impact on who you are and your energy levels. And that's what came out of this experience for me. So I went through all of these emotional turmoils and challenges to get to that point. And after years and years of talking to different doctors and different healthcare providers, I finally found a protocol that works for me, that's all natural, that I was able to overcome this illness to the point where I haven't taken medication for it in years and have managed my symptoms entirely just naturally. So if I hadn't had that experience, gone through that pain and that challenge, I wouldn't be who I am today. It wouldn't have taught me those valuable lessons and given me that confidence. And so I wouldn't change it for anything. But man, it was hard to go through those kinds of things, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So how has this experience changed your outlook like on health and wellness and how does it affect anything differently personally or in your work?
Absolutely. I had to learn how to manage stress. So stress is a normal part of life. Everybody experiences it. It's not a bad thing in itself, but you really have to learn how to manage it, and you have to learn healthy coping mechanisms for it. So I do a lot of meditation to kind of clear my mind of things that I'm worried about. I do a lot of journaling to write down, what's bothering me, what's in my head. I do breathing exercises. Those are just some really simple ways that you can try to start managing your emotional state and really understanding those kind of stress relieving techniques that you can do. But then also prioritizing yourself, taking care of yourself. For a lot of my life, I focused on taking care of other people first and making sure that other people's needs were met and not my own. And eventually I recognized that that's not sustainable, that at some point you really have to prioritize yourself, take care of yourself first, recharge your own batteries so that then you can show up better for other people. And that was really a life-changing moment for me.
Right. It's so important. I mean, it's one of the things here with Spa Life, it's seek power always, right? It's that power within you. A lot of times we look for things outside of ourselves, but when we look at all the resources that we have within ourselves and come from that place, then it's one of those like giving from the overflow, right? Versus being depleted. So I think any entrepreneur or anybody who's been in corporate for many years who has experienced whether it's adrenal fatigue or some sort of thing that stress has manifest in their life they've got to come up with some new strategies. They've got to look at different ways so that they can play that long game, right? And to be able to look at things from a different perspective. So I love that, just being able to share that journey allows people who are in it, right, to go, wait a minute, maybe I need to look at this in a different way. And was that a big shift for you? How was that with your family? Because I mean, I think sometimes being stressed is sometimes a way of being, like that whole sense of busyness. When we start doing something differently, it can feel unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm. It is. And setting boundaries is hard. So especially when you're doing things different than you've done in the past, setting boundaries with your family, with your work, with your friends, they don't like that change. It's uncomfortable for them. So for me, what was really important is to make sure that people understood that I'm not trying to tell them that they're not important to me. So, by setting boundaries at work and saying, I'm going to be available to work during these hours and not during these hours, that's, you just have to do it. I really got burned out at work in the corporate world when my company moved from a regional organizational structure to a global organizational structure, because all of a sudden I had a global team reporting to me. And that meant people in all different time zones around the world needed my attention all the time. It felt like I was working 24/7. And after a while, I realized this isn't sustainable. I'm not able to help them the way that they need it because I myself am exhausted. And so I had to set those boundaries and say, listen, you're really important to me. I'm going to get to you as soon as I can. But during these hours, I have to have time for myself. And I even started a practice of scheduling personal time on my calendar and treating it like an important meeting. A lot of business people, pay very close attention to their calendar, and their meetings are, they want to be professional. They want to show up on time. They want to make sure that they're giving their full attention to the meeting. Do the same thing for your personal life. Set your personal schedule in a way that you treat it the same as you would an important meeting. And those kinds of things really helped me.
So good. I always like to say, if you put on there, going to the gym or going for a walk, that's a health appointment, right? Yep. These are the things that help us really show up differently in life. In fact, one of the articles that you had shared in LinkedIn had to do with overwhelm and some of the things that we do. And I loved one of the terms in there, which was self-worth validation, where busyness is equating to success. And I think that when we dismantle that and look at, okay, are we actually being productive? And is all of the things that we're doing, being in constant motion, something that is actually helping us move forward? Or is it in some ways actually hurting us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And the most important thing about that is writing down your values. So I like to use the example. If you can choose the 3 to 5 things that are really important to you, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your health, maybe it's your faith, maybe it's your career advancement or learning a new skill. Write down those things that are really important to you in the order of priority. And the reason that's important is when new things come up, new opportunities, or even just a friend calls and says, hey, you want to go out tonight? Look at your list. Did you have something else that was a higher priority on your list planned for that time? If so, it makes it a much easier decision to say, I'd love to, now's not a good time. I've got another priority I got to take care of. Let's find another time to do it down the road. If you have those priorities figured out, what do you really value? It helps you make sure that you're not spending time just filling with busy work, but that you're really focused on the things that matter.
Such a great insight. One of the things, going back to the calendar is, a lot of times people think of their calendar as things that they have to do versus what they get to do. And when you look at your calendar, and if you don't like the things that are on there, if your family's not in there, if there's certain things in there, then, there's a certain part of you that's not being expressed in your daily life. So I think that is such a great tool to be able to utilize our calendar to see, are we living our best life? Are we living the way we want to be? And what kind of shifts or changes we need to make along the way? So
yep.
Such a great.
I love that. And I'll give you a quick example. So when I left the corporate world a couple of months ago and started writing on LinkedIn, I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy it, but it's a fun activity for me. I get to be creative. I get to share my ideas. Obviously I get feedback from the people on LinkedIn about it. And that's been very fulfilling for me. It was something that was missing from my life before, that creative outlet. And if I hadn't made that transition to where I'm doing things, for my own self and my own business now, I probably wouldn't have recognized that need that I had that wasn't being fulfilled. Now that I have it, I know that going forward, I've always got to have something in my life that I'm doing that's creative in order to give me that fulfillment.
Oh, so good. Well, speaking of creating environments, one of the things we talk about is, in your personal space, we live differently in our bedroom versus our kitchen or our office. What's your favorite room in your home and why?
Well, my wife and I and our kids just moved into a new home about 6 months ago, and we love it. It's a very peaceful neighborhood. It's got a great vibe to it. And my wife has spent a lot of time making our bedroom a very comfortable space that's beautiful, well decorated, soothing. And so that's one of my favorite places in the house, just to be able to relax, to unwind, not have all the distractions. We don't have a TV in the bedroom. I know probably some people are shocked about that because a lot of people love to watch TV in bed or go to sleep with the TV on. But for us, it's just a nice, comfortable, quiet, cool place that you can really relax. And for me, sleep is crucial. I mean, it's a vital part of my lifestyle. And so having a comfortable space to be able to get a good night's sleep in is really important.
Oh, that's so good. Well, in case people were driving and they missed that tip that was in there with this favorite room, is not having electronics in your room is actually a major like health hack. Like, the EMFs, I mean, we're around electronics so much. And so even just simply having a TV not in your place that you sleep is a major thing you can do for your health. So thanks for that reminder. Oh, good. Awesome. Well, I know that people are going to want to stay in contact with you. How can they best do that, Justin?
Yeah, the best way is on LinkedIn. If you have an account on LinkedIn, it's pretty easy to find me. And I think you're going to link to that in the show notes. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I post daily on the topics of transformation and personal growth. And I like to share a lot of, innovative ideas or actionable techniques that people can use to improve their personal life and also advance in their career. And that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, as you know, our theme for this season is intentional living. So, in what way are you living an intentional life today?
Yeah, absolutely. So intentional living to me is really important. It's about knowing your values, about focusing on the things that really bring you fulfillment. And for me personally, that's spending time with my family. I love to be with them. I love to, laugh and play with them. It's focusing on the things that fill me up and recharge me. So being creative, writing, sharing ideas, and also just making sure that I'm living a healthy lifestyle, and that is, being mindful about the things that I'm doing, what I'm putting in my life, what I'm surrounding myself with. That's how I do intentional living.
So good. Well, I so appreciate that, and I just want to thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom. And just as a final thought, you recently put something on around task versus building truth and trust. So trust is such an important thing, and I think that sometimes we can lose that trust, and building it can be tough. So what are some of the things that you can share, kind of piggybacking on what you had posted in and around that about you can automate tasks, but you
Mhm.
cannot automate trust. And there's like one thing you talked about where we will win the AI game.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I was a CIO in my career. And so I'm very familiar with technology. And one of the things that people are really nervous about today is there's so much change happening with AI infiltrating our workplaces that they worry about their jobs being lost, or having to learn new things that they're not really sure about right now. And what I wanted to emphasize with that post was you can automate tasks. So automation is a part of advancing our society, but you can't automate trust. There's always a need for human connection. There's always a need for working with other people, and that's really what business is all about. And so the concept here is, if you can focus on the things that AI isn't there to replace, your empathy, your creativity, your ability to bond with other people, to develop trust with them, connect with them. Those are the things that are going to be needed in the career advancement, in business in general, forever. There's always going to be a need for that human connection, and that's something that's evolved over millennia. It's not something that can be replaced by machines. And so that's really the best way to future proof yourself, is to make sure that you're focusing on your human traits and developing those.
Perfect. Well, I love that, because I know a lot of people, but that's kind of like the buzzword of the days is AI. And I think that'll kind of put people at rest and go like, you know what? we can't invite the robot over for barbecue and have a conversation and be able to chat. So I love that perspective, and I think people will really appreciate that. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us here today.
It's been great. Thanks, Diane.
You got it. And to our listeners out there, hey, if you're considering a pivot, if you want to start looking at things differently, please feel free to reach out to either Justin or myself. We're happy to answer any questions of yours and be able to support you in any way. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks.